There is a quiet truth that whispers itself into your life long before you have language for it, long before you can explain it to anyone else. And that truth is this: you were never meant to blend in. You feel it in moments when the world seems too loud for your sensitivity, too rushed for your depth, too shallow for your longing. You feel it when conversations skim the surface and something inside you aches for meaning, for essence, for the invisible currents beneath what everyone else calls reality. And if you are honest with yourself, you have felt this for as long as you can remember. This is not a flaw in you. This is not a defect of personality. This is the signature of a soul that arrived here with a different assignment. The chosen ones are not chosen by a crown or a ceremony or an external authority. They are chosen by an inner resonance, by a calling that cannot be silenced even when it is ignored. They are the dreamers who cannot stop imagining a kinder world, the seekers who cannot accept borrowed answers, the awakened souls who feel homesick for something they cannot name. And because their frequency is different, their path is different. They often walk alone, not because they are unlovable, but because they are tuned to a deeper channel of life. Loneliness, for the chosen one, is not a punishment. It is an initiation. It is the space in which the noise falls away and the real conversation can begin. When others drift away, when relationships fall apart without a clear villain, when the familiar structures dissolve, it can feel like rejection. But look more closely. What is really happening is that life is gently, sometimes firmly, removing what no longer matches who you are becoming. The soul does not grow in crowded rooms of constant validation. The soul grows in silence, in reflection, in those long stretches where you are left alone with your own truth. There is a moment on this path when the ego protests loudly. The ego says, something must be wrong with me. The ego counts likes, friends, invitations, approval, and tries to measure worth by external echoes. But you are not your ego, and your worth was never meant to be measured that way. The ego wants certainty, control, and constant reassurance. The soul wants expansion, alignment, and freedom. When you begin to live from the soul, the ego feels threatened, and it translates that threat into fear and loneliness. But beneath that discomfort is a profound recalibration taking place. Think of the seed buried in the dark soil. It is alone. It is unseen. There is no applause for its struggle. Yet it is precisely in that darkness that it gathers strength, that it reaches downward and upward at the same time, that it prepares to break through the surface and become something it could never have been if it had stayed exposed and comfortable. You are in that soil now. The quiet you feel is not emptiness, it is incubation. Chosen ones often experience early awakenings to pain, to injustice, to the fragility of life. They see through illusions sooner than others. They sense that chasing status, possessions, or approval cannot satisfy the deeper hunger within them. This awareness can be isolating. It can make you feel like a stranger in familiar places. But it is also what frees you from living a borrowed life. You are here to remember who you are beneath the conditioning, beneath the roles, beneath the masks you learn to wear to be accepted. When you walk alone, you begin to hear the subtle guidance that was always there but drowned out by external noise. You begin to recognize the difference between intuition and fear, between desire and distraction. You start to notice that your soul speaks in feelings, in quiet nudges, in moments of still knowing. The soul always knows, and it knows the way forward, even when the mind cannot map it out. There will be times when you look around and wonder why it seems easier for others, why they move in groups, why they appear so certain and supported. But remember, not all togetherness is connection, and not all solitude is loneliness. Many people stay busy to avoid meeting themselves. Many people stay surrounded to avoid the silence where truth waits. Your aloneness is not an absence of love. It is an invitation to a deeper, more authentic love that begins within. Healing begins within, and it often begins in solitude. When there is no one to distract you, you start to feel what you have been avoiding. Old grief rises. Unspoken anger surfaces. Forgotten dreams knock again at the door of your awareness. This is not regression. This is integration. You cannot heal what you refuse to feel, and you cannot become whole while running from your own inner landscape. Walking alone gives you the courage to sit with yourself, to offer compassion where judgment once lived, to forgive yourself for not knowing what you did not yet know. Forgiveness is the path to freedom, and for the chosen one, forgiveness is not just about others. It is about releasing the resentment you hold toward life for being difficult, toward yourself for being different, toward the past for not matching your expectations. There are no justified resentments because resentment chains you to the very thing you want to move beyond. When you forgive, you are not condoning what happened. You are choosing not to carry it forward. You are choosing lightness over bitterness, expansion over contraction. As you release the past, you discover a surprising truth. You are already enough. You do not need to prove your worth through suffering, achievement, or sacrifice. You do not need to earn your right to exist. Your being here is not an accident, and your uniqueness is not a mistake. The loneliness you have felt has been shaping you, refining your sensitivity, sharpening your awareness, teaching you to rely on inner guidance rather than external validation. The chosen ones are often called to lead, but not in the traditional sense. They lead by example, by presence, by embodying a different way of being. They become reminders of what is possible when a human being lives from alignment rather than fear. And leadership of this kind requires inner authority. It requires knowing who you are when no one is watching, trusting your path even when it is not understood, standing in your truth without needing to convince anyone else. There is a paradox here that the ego struggles to accept. The more you stop trying to fit in, the more you belong to yourself. And when you belong to yourself, you become a magnet for connections that are real, nourishing, and aligned. The solitude is not permanent, it is purposeful. It is the clearing of the ground so that what arrives next is not built on compromise or pretense, but on authenticity. Living in the now becomes essential on this path, because the mind will try to project your solitude into a permanent future or reinterpret it as a failure of the past. But life only unfolds in this moment. In this moment, you are breathing. In this moment, you are aware. In this moment, you are supported by an intelligence that beats your heart and moves the stars without your effort. When you anchor yourself in the present, the story of lack dissolves and a quiet gratitude begins to take its place. You may notice that as you walk alone, your sensitivity deepens. You feel more, see more, intuit more. This can be overwhelming at times, but it is also your gift. You are learning to trust your inner compass, to honor your energy, to say no to what drains you and yes to what feels alive. This discernment is part of your preparation. You are not being set apart to be superior, you are being set apart to be clear. The chosen ones are often misunderstood, not because they are confusing, but because they reflect back what others have not yet faced within themselves. Your presence can be unsettling to those who are still identified with their masks. Your questions can feel threatening to those who rely on certainty for security. This is not your responsibility to manage. Your responsibility is to remain true, gentle, and grounded in your own alignment. When the path becomes quiet, when there are fewer voices around you, listen carefully. The silence is teaching you how to hear yourself. It is teaching you how to sit in your own company without needing to escape. It is teaching you that peace does not come from being surrounded, but from being centered. In this quiet, you begin to sense your divine nature, not as an abstract concept, but as a lived experience of connection, meaning, and inner freedom. You are a divine being having a human experience, and that divinity does not require constant affirmation to exist. It simply is. When you remember this, the loneliness transforms. It becomes sacred space. It becomes a sanctuary where you reconnect with the source of your being. From this place, you no longer seek to be chosen by the world, because you know you are already chosen by life itself. And then, almost without effort, something shifts. You stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and start asking, "What is being asked of me?" You stop trying to return to who you were, and you begin to step into who you are becoming. The alone time has done its work. It has stripped away what is false, strengthened what is real, and aligned you with a purpose that feels less like a job and more like a calling. The chosen ones walk alone for a time so that when they walk with others, they do so from wholeness rather than need. They love without attachment, serve without self-erasure, and connect without losing themselves. They know that their value does not fluctuate with circumstances, and their peace does not depend on external arrangements. If you are walking alone right now, trust that this is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your alignment with a deeper truth. You are being guided, even when it feels unclear. You are being supported, even when it feels quiet. And you are being prepared, even when it feels uncomfortable. Stay with yourself. Be gentle with your process. Honor the solitude without labeling it as lack. The path you are on is ancient and meaningful, and it leads not away from life, but into it. When the world misunderstands you, when others drift away, when the path becomes quiet, remember this: you are not lost. You are listening, you are not alone, you are aligning, and in that alignment, you are stepping into the freedom, the peace, and the purpose that were always meant to be yours. And as you remain with yourself in this sacred quiet, something even more subtle begins to unfold. You start to notice that the aloneness you once resisted is not cold or empty, but alive, intelligent, responsive. It listens to you. It answers you. It mirrors you back to yourself with an honesty that no crowd ever could. In this space, you are no longer performing, no longer adjusting your tone to be understood, no longer shrinking or stretching to belong. You are simply present. And presence, when allowed to deepen, becomes a doorway. Here is where the chosen one begins to recognize that walking alone was never about isolation from others, but about reunion with the self. The outer separations were merely reflections of an inner remembering. You are coming home to the part of you that existed before opinions shaped you, before expectations bent you, before fear taught you to doubt your own knowing. This remembering is gentle, but it is irreversible. Once you see that your value does not come from being needed, applauded, or understood, you cannot unsee it. A quiet strength takes root, one that does not announce itself, yet cannot be shaken. You may feel drawn now to simplicity, to fewer words, to deeper breaths, to moments that feel real rather than impressive. This is not withdrawal from life, it is refinement of life. The soul always moves toward what is essential. It sheds excess the way a tree releases dead leaves, not out of rejection, but out of wisdom. You are learning that energy is sacred, and where you place it determines what grows within you. Walking alone has taught you discernment, and discernment is love in its most mature form. There will be moments when the old world tries to pull you back with familiar patterns, familiar dramas, familiar roles, and you may feel a tenderness for who you used to be, the one who tried harder, explained more, tolerated less alignment just to avoid being alone. Bless that version of you. Do not judge it. It did exactly what it knew to do at the time, but you are not required to live there anymore. Growth does not ask for loyalty to outdated versions of the self. It asks for honesty. As this honesty deepens, you begin to feel a new relationship with uncertainty. Where fear once lived, curiosity now arises. Where anxiety once tightened your chest, a quiet trust begins to breathe. You no longer need to know how everything will unfold to feel safe. You sense, perhaps for the first time, that life is not happening to you, but through you. That you are not separate from the flow you once tried to control. This realization softens you. It humbles you. It frees you. And freedom, true freedom, is never loud. It does not demand attention. It does not need permission. It is the internal permission you give yourself to be as you are, where you are, without resistance. It is the release of the inner argument with reality. The chosen one eventually understands that peace is not found by arranging the world, but by aligning with it. When you stop insisting that life look a certain way to validate you, life begins to reveal its quiet generosity. You may notice now that your compassion has expanded, not in a sentimental way, but in a grounded, spacious way. You see others walking their own paths, carrying their own fears, acting from their own level of awareness. You no longer need to correct them or convince them. You simply allow them. This allowance is not indifference. It is maturity. It is the understanding that everyone is at a different point in their remembering, and that forcing insight only creates resistance. From this place, connection begins to return, but it arrives differently. It is no longer driven by need or loneliness, but by resonance. You recognize kindred spirits not by how much they fill the space, but by how peaceful you feel in their presence. There is no rush, no grasping, no urgency to define or secure. You trust that what is aligned will remain, and what is not will gently fall away without drama. This trust is not naivete. It is wisdom earned through solitude. The chosen ones do not walk alone forever, but they never walk unconsciously again. They carry the silence with them, even in conversation. They carry the stillness into movement. They have learned how to be with themselves, and this becomes the foundation for every relationship, every creation, every offering they bring into the world. They are no longer seeking to be completed because they have discovered their own wholeness. And so, if you find yourself here now, standing in this in-between space where the old no longer fits and the new has not fully arrived, rest. Do not rush the unfolding. Trust the intelligence that has guided you this far without a map. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where a soul of your depth must be to become what it came here to be. The path may still feel quiet at times, but it is no longer empty. It is filled with presence, with awareness, with a subtle joy that does not depend on circumstance. And as you continue forward, you may realize that what once felt like loneliness has transformed into companionship with life itself. You are walking, yes, but you are not alone. You are being carried by something vast, intelligent, and infinitely patient. This is why the chosen ones walk alone for a season, not to be diminished, but to be revealed, not to be separated from love, but to remember its source. And as you keep walking softly, honestly, awake to your own being, you become a quiet light, not trying to shine, simply unable not to. And in this gentle revealing, another truth rises to meet you, one that reshapes how you understand your own journey. You begin to see that the pauses, the gaps, the seasons of seeming stillness were never interruptions in your life. They were the curriculum. They were the moments when the outer world stepped back so the inner world could step forward and speak. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Even the ache you once labeled as loneliness was a teacher, quietly guiding you inward, away from noise and toward knowing. You start to sense that your life has been less about accumulation and more about subtraction, less about becoming someone new and more about remembering what was always there. Each time something fell away, it was not taken from you, it was released from you. Roles that no longer fit, relationships that no longer resonated, dreams that were born from expectation rather than truth. And with each release, a little more space opened inside you, space for clarity, space for peace, space for a deeper kind of joy that does not announce itself but steadily endures. There comes a moment when you realize that you no longer need to explain yourself. The urge to be understood softens, and in its place grows a quiet self-acceptance. You understand now that not everyone is meant to walk beside you, and that this does not diminish your worth or theirs. Different paths serve different awakenings. You are no longer offended by distance. You respect it. You see it as a natural expression of alignment rather than rejection. This is where inner freedom truly takes root. Freedom from the need to perform. Freedom from the need to compare. Freedom from the belief that your life must resemble anyone else's to be valid. You feel lighter, not because life has become effortless, but because you are no longer resisting it. You meet challenges with curiosity instead of dread, with presence instead of panic. You trust yourself now, not because you have all the answers, but because you have learned to listen. And listening changes everything. You listen to your body when it asks for rest. You listen to your heart when it whispers truth. You listen to your intuition when it gently redirects you away from what drains you and toward what nourishes you. This listening is an act of self-respect, and self-respect naturally gives rise to self-love, not the fragile kind that depends on praise, but the steady kind that remains even when you are unseen. As this love deepens, you notice something quietly miraculous. The world begins to respond differently to you, not because you demand it, but because your energy has changed. You are no longer pushing against life, and life no longer pushes back. Opportunities arise not from striving, but from alignment. Encounters feel purposeful, even when brief. There is a sense of being guided, of being met exactly where you are. You understand now that walking alone was never a sign that you were disconnected from life. It was a sign that you were being invited into a more intimate relationship with it. In the silence, you learn to hear. In the emptiness, you learn to trust. In the solitude, you learn to stand in your own presence without collapsing or hardening. These lessons are not visible to the world, but they are unmistakable within you. And so you continue, not with urgency, but with quiet confidence. You do not rush towards some imagined destination because you have discovered that the path itself is alive, responsive, and sufficient. Each step is enough. Each breath is enough. You are enough, not someday, not when something changes, but now, as you are. The chosen ones do not walk alone because they are meant to suffer. They walk alone because they are meant to remember. And when remembrance takes hold, the loneliness dissolves into something far more enduring, a steady companionship with your own soul, and a deep, unshakable trust in the intelligence that moves all things, including you, exactly where they need to be. And now, as this understanding settles into you, not as an idea but as a felt knowing, there is a deep exhale that moves through your being. It is the release of the struggle to arrive somewhere else, to be someone else, to prove something that never needed proof. You sense that the journey has not been about finding your place in the world, but about allowing the world to find its place within you. This is the quiet turning point where seeking gives way to allowing. You recognize that the path of the chosen one is not marked by noise or spectacle, but by sincerity, by the willingness to stand naked before life without armor, without pretense, without the need to be carried by belief systems that no longer feel true. You have learned how to walk with uncertainty as a companion rather than an enemy, how to let questions remain open without demanding immediate answers. In this openness, wisdom flows naturally without effort. There is a gentleness now in the way you move through the world. Not a weakness, but a strength that comes from no longer needing to defend your existence. You do not rush to be seen because you are no longer afraid of being invisible. You do not cling to outcomes because you trust the unfolding. You have discovered that peace is not something you chase. It is something you uncover when you stop interfering with your own becoming. And in this peace, something extraordinary reveals itself. Gratitude without conditions. Gratitude not because everything turned out the way you wanted, but because everything shaped you into someone capable of presence, compassion, and depth. Even the moments that broke you open now feel like sacred thresholds. They stripped away what was false and revealed what was real. They taught you how to bend without breaking, how to feel without drowning, how to love without losing yourself. You begin to see that your aloneness was never a detour from love. It was love refining itself within you, teaching you how to source it internally rather than seek it externally, teaching you how to sit with yourself in silence and discover that you are not empty, not lacking, not abandoned, but full, connected, and held by something far greater than circumstance. And so you walk forward now, not alone in the way you once feared, but accompanied by a quiet certainty that cannot be shaken. A certainty that life is intelligent, that you are guided, that every step you take from this place of alignment sends a ripple into the world, even if no one applauds it, even if no one notices it. The impact of a soul at peace is subtle, but it is profound. You no longer ask the world to understand you, you understand yourself. You no longer wait for permission to live truthfully, you live. And in living this way, awake, present, unguarded, you fulfill the very reason you felt different from the beginning. Not to stand apart in suffering, but to stand rooted in truth. Not to escape humanity, but to bring something quietly healing back into it. This is why the chosen ones walk alone for a time. So they can remember who they are without interference. So they can hear the voice beneath all other voices. So they can return to the world not seeking to be filled, but ready to overflow. And as you take your next step, and the next, and the next, may you carry this knowing gently within you. You were never behind, never forgotten, never misplaced. You were preparing. You were listening. You were becoming. And now, without forcing, without striving, without fear, you simply allow life to move through you, freely, lovingly, and exactly as it was always meant to. There is a gentle truth whispering beneath all the noise of your life, a truth that has never raised its voice, never competed with your worries, never argued with your fears, and yet has always been present, patiently waiting for you to notice it. It says to you now, not as a command, not as a demand, but as an invitation born of love. You do not need to stress. You were never meant to live clenched inside your own mind, gripping life as if it might slip away the moment you loosen your hold. Stress is not strength. Tension is not control. Worry is not wisdom. They are habits of forgetting who you really are. When you are stressed, you are leaning into a belief that the universe is unsafe, that life is hostile, that everything depends on your constant vigilance. Stress is the body's way of saying, I think I'm alone in this, and the quiet voice of the divine responds again and again, you never were. But that voice does not shout over your racing thoughts. It does not interrupt your mental rehearsals of what could go wrong. It waits for stillness, because stillness is the language through which guidance flows. You see, guidance does not arrive through panic. Insight does not emerge from pressure. The next right step is rarely revealed when you are mentally pacing the room of your fears. Divine intelligence moves with elegance, with simplicity, with calm certainty. It moves like breath, like gravity, like the turning of seasons. And when you stress, you close the door to that movement, not because you are punished, but because you are distracted. You are listening to the voice of urgency instead of the voice of truth. Take a moment now and notice what stress feels like inside you. Not the story behind it, not the justification for it, but the sensation itself. The tight jaw, the shallow breath, the shoulders lifted as if bracing for impact. Stress is a contraction, a pulling inward, a forgetting of the vastness that holds you. Faith, on the other hand, is an exhale. It is not blind optimism or denial of difficulty. It is the deep knowing that even in difficulty, you are carried. Faith is the recognition that the same intelligence that beats your heart without your permission is also orchestrating your life beyond your understanding. There is something profoundly healing that happens when you stop arguing with the moment you are in. Stress is an argument with reality. It says, this shouldn't be happening, or I can't handle this, or I need this to be different right now. And every argument with what is creates friction inside your soul. But when you soften, when you breathe, when you allow the moment to be exactly as it is without labeling it as a mistake, a subtle shift occurs. You begin to feel supported rather than attacked by life. This is not about passivity. It is about alignment. When you stop stressing, you are not giving up responsibility. You are giving up resistance. You are stepping out of the illusion that you must carry the weight of the world on your nervous system. You are remembering that you are a channel, not the source. The river does not stress about reaching the ocean. It flows, and the destination takes care of itself. In the same way, your life is not asking you to force outcomes, but to cooperate with the intelligence already moving through you. There is a sacred paradox here that the ego struggles to understand. The more you try to control everything, the less peace you feel, and the more you release your grip, the more clarity arrives. This is not coincidence. This is design. The ego believes that tension equals safety, that vigilance equals power, that worry is a form of love. But the soul knows otherwise. The soul knows that love is trust, that power is presence, that safety is not found in predicting every possible future, but in resting in the awareness that whatever unfolds, you will be guided through it. God speaks the loudest when you are quiet inside. Not because God prefers silence, but because silence is the state in which you can hear. Guidance is always broadcasting, but stress is static. Worry is interference. When your mind is racing, you are tuned to the wrong frequency. When you slow down, when you breathe deeply, when you release the need to know everything right now, you begin to receive insights that feel less like thoughts and more like recognitions. They arrive as calm certainty. They arrive as gentle nudges. They arrive as a sense of, this feels right, rather than a frantic, what if? You may have noticed this before in small moments. When you stopped trying so hard, the answer came. When you let go of forcing a decision, clarity emerged. When you finally relaxed, the solution appeared effortlessly. These are not accidents. They are reminders. Reminders that stress is not the doorway to progress. Surrender is. And surrender, in its truest form, is not weakness. It is alignment with a wisdom far greater than the thinking mind. There is a part of you that already knows how to live without stress. It is the part of you that existed before you learned to worry, before you learned to measure your worth by outcomes, before you learned to believe that love must be earned through struggle. This part of you is not impressed by chaos. It is not intimidated by uncertainty. It knows that life unfolds exactly as it needs to for your growth, even when the path is not immediately clear. Stress often arises from the belief that something essential is missing, that you are behind, that you should be further along, that you are not enough as you are right now. And yet the truth is quietly radical. You are already enough. Not when you fix everything, not when you figure it all out. Now, in this breath, in this imperfect, unfolding moment, when you accept this, not intellectually but experientially, the nervous system relaxes. The body softens, the heart opens, And in that openness, guidance flows naturally. Healing begins within, not as an act of effort, but as an act of allowance. You do not heal by fighting yourself into peace. You heal by stopping the inner war. You heal by noticing how often you push yourself, criticize yourself, pressure yourself to be different than you are. Stress is often self-directed violence masquerading as motivation. It is the belief that you must be harsh with yourself to survive. But love has never required force. Transformation does not come from tension, it comes from compassion. Imagine what would happen if you treated yourself with the same gentleness you would offer a frightened child. You would not shout at them to calm down. You would not demand that they have all the answers. You would sit with them. You would reassure them. You would remind them that they are safe. In doing so, you would regulate their nervous system, not by logic, but by presence. This is exactly what the divine presence does for you when you allow it in. It does not scold you for worrying. It simply waits for you to soften enough to feel held. When you stop stressing, you create space. And space is sacred. Space is where insight enters. Space is where intuition whispers. Space is where miracles feel ordinary. The mind wants to fill every gap with planning, predicting, and protecting. But the soul thrives in openness, in the pause between thoughts, in the breath between breaths, in the moment when you admit, I don't know, and that's okay. There are no justified resentments, because resentment is stress stored in the heart. It is the refusal to let life move forward. It is the belief that peace must wait until the past is corrected. But the past cannot be corrected. It can only be released. Forgiveness is not about condoning what hurt you. It is about freeing yourself from the burden of carrying it. And when you forgive, when you truly let go, the body relaxes, the mind clears, and guidance rushes in like fresh air into a sealed room. Forgiveness is the path to freedom because it dissolves the inner tension that blocks love. And love is not sentimental, it is intelligent. Love knows how to guide. Love knows how to heal. Love knows how to lead you step by step, moment by moment, into a life that feels aligned rather than forced. When you forgive, you are not losing anything. You are reclaiming yourself. Change your thoughts, and you change your life. Not because positive thinking manipulates reality, but because your thoughts determine what you are available to receive. A stressed mind is closed. A peaceful mind is open. An open mind notices opportunities that a tense mind overlooks. An open heart senses timing that a fearful heart mistrusts. When you change your inner climate from pressure to presence, the outer landscape responds in ways that often feel miraculous, though they are simply natural. You are not your ego. The ego thrives on urgency, comparison, and control. It believes that if it relaxes, everything will fall apart. But you are not that voice. You are the awareness that hears it. You are the stillness beneath it. You are the field in which thoughts arise and dissolve. And the moment you identify with the observer rather than the noise, stress begins to lose its grip. You no longer need to silence the mind. You simply stop obeying it. Living in the now is not a spiritual slogan. It is a physiological necessity. Stress always lives in the future or the past. Peace lives here. Right now, in this breath, you are okay. Right now, you are alive. Right now, nothing is required of you except presence. And when you anchor yourself here, guidance does not feel distant or mysterious. It feels intimate. It feels personal. It feels like a quiet confidence that says, take this step, and then, now this one. The soul always knows. It knows when to rest. It knows when to act. It knows when to speak and when to wait. But it cannot guide you if you are constantly overriding it with fear. Stress is often the refusal to listen. Faith is the willingness to trust what you sense rather than what you fear. And trust is not built by forcing certainty. It is built by noticing how often you have been carried through moments you once thought would break you. You are a divine being having a human experience, not a human being desperately trying to earn divine support. Support is not conditional. It is not withdrawn when you make mistakes. It is not delayed until you are calm enough to deserve it. It is constant. But you must be receptive. And receptivity requires softness. It requires humility. It requires the courage to stop pushing and start allowing. So breathe now, not as a technique, but as a remembrance. Each breath is proof that you are sustained. Each exhale is permission to let go. You do not have to solve your entire life in this moment. You only have to stop fighting it. And in that surrender, something remarkable happens. The noise fades, the body relaxes, the heart opens, and in the quiet that follows, guidance emerges, not as a dramatic revelation, but as a gentle knowing. Stress closes the door. Faith opens it. And faith is not the absence of fear, but the decision not to let fear lead. When you choose faith, you choose alignment. You choose peace. You choose to trust that even when you cannot see the whole path, the next step will be revealed. And it will be revealed not through tension, but through stillness. Remember this, you are not here to suffer your way into worthiness. You are here to remember who you are. You are here to live from the inside out. You are here to let life move through you rather than against you. And every time you stop stressing, every time you soften your thoughts, every time you choose presence over panic, you open yourself to a guidance that has never left you. Be quiet inside, not by force, but by kindness. Let the storm settle. Let the waters clear. And you will see that you were never abandoned, never unsupported, never alone. You were simply listening to the wrong voice. Now listen to the one that speaks in peace. And as you listen now, not with your ears, but with the quiet center of your being, notice how something within you is already responding. There is a subtle loosening, a gentle recognition, as if an inner knot you forgot you were carrying has begun to untie itself. This is not imagination. This is remembrance. The body remembers peace. The soul remembers trust. You are not learning something new. You are returning to something ancient within you. There is a rhythm to life that cannot be hurried without consequence. When you rush, when you press, when you demand answers before their season, you move out of sync with that rhythm. Stress is often the sound of being out of tune with your own nature. And nature never strains. The stars do not rush across the sky. The seed does not panic underground. Everything unfolds according to an intelligence that does not consult fear. When you align with that intelligence, effort becomes graceful and action flows without force. You may have believed that your stress was proof of your commitment, that your worry showed how deeply you cared, but caring does not require suffering. Love does not need anxiety to validate its sincerity. In truth, stress clouds the very wisdom you need to care effectively. When your mind is tight, your vision narrows. When your heart is guarded, your intuition quiets. Peace is not indifference, it is clarity. And clarity allows you to respond rather than react. There is a profound difference between responding and reacting. Reaction is driven by old conditioning, by unexamined fears, by the past repeating itself through you. Response arises from presence. It is fresh. It is alive. It is informed by the now rather than imprisoned by yesterday. When you stop stressing, you step out of reaction and into response. You give yourself access to choice, and choice is the birthplace of freedom. Consider how often you attempt to manage outcomes instead of tending to alignment. You focus on results, timelines, and guarantees, believing that if you could just secure the future, you could finally relax. But the future cannot be secured through tension. It can only be entered through trust. Alignment is your true responsibility. When you are aligned with peace, with truth, with love, outcomes arrange themselves in ways the anxious mind could never orchestrate. There is a sacred intelligence moving through every challenge you face. It is shaping you, refining you, inviting you into greater awareness. Stress resists this process. It says, I should not be here, or this should not be happening. But growth often arrives disguised as inconvenience. Guidance often comes disguised as uncertainty. When you meet these moments with openness instead of resistance, they reveal their purpose gently, without struggle. You are not broken because you feel overwhelmed at times. You are human. But you are also more than human. And the part of you that is more than human is never overwhelmed. It observes. It understands. It waits. When you identify with that deeper awareness, stress becomes a passing weather pattern rather than a permanent climate. You stop asking, how do I fix this? And begin asking, what is this teaching me? And in that shift, wisdom unfolds. Stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness without noise. It is the fertile ground from which insight grows. When you allow moments of stillness into your life, even brief ones, you give your inner guidance a place to land. You do not need hours of silence or a perfect environment. You need willingness. A single conscious breath can interrupt a lifetime of habitual tension. A single moment of surrender can recalibrate your entire nervous system. Notice how peace feels when you stop chasing it and simply allow it. It is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, like dawn, gradually illuminating what was always there. In peace, you do not lose your edge, you lose your fear. And fear has never been a reliable advisor. Peace sharpens perception. It refines intention. It brings you back into harmony with the intelligence that animates all life. There is a deeper trust being asked of you now. Not trust that everything will go according to your plans, but trust that you will be guided even when plans dissolve. Life is not happening to you, it is happening through you. And when you stop resisting its flow, you become a participant rather than a combatant. You move with life instead of against it. And life, in its wisdom, always supports those who cooperate with its rhythm. You do not need to earn rest. Rest is your natural state when you stop believing the story that you must constantly prove your worth. Worth is inherent. It is not negotiated through productivity or validated through exhaustion. When you release the need to justify your existence, your body relaxes into its natural intelligence. Healing accelerates. Creativity returns. Joy becomes accessible again. There is an inner voice that speaks without urgency, without threat, without pressure. It does not demand immediate action. It invites gentle awareness. This voice is not impressed by panic. It is activated by presence. When you feel compelled to rush, to fix, to control, pause and ask yourself, who is speaking right now? If the voice carries fear, it is not the voice of guidance. Guidance carries peace, even when it asks you to take bold steps. The mind may argue with this. It may insist that calm is unrealistic, that peace is naive, that vigilance is necessary. But the mind has been trained by a world that equates struggle with value. You are allowed to unlearn that lesson. You are allowed to choose ease without guilt. Ease does not mean a lack of depth, it means alignment with truth. Every time you choose to soften instead of tighten, you send a signal to your entire being that you are safe, and safety is the foundation of intuition. When you feel safe, your inner guidance becomes clear, precise, and reliable. When you feel threatened, even by imagined futures, your system goes into defense and wisdom retreats. Peace invites wisdom forward. So allow yourself to trust the pause. Allow yourself to not know for a moment. Allow yourself to be held by something greater than your plans. You are not abandoning responsibility. You are redefining it. Your responsibility is not to control life, but to align with it. And alignment begins the moment you stop stressing and start listening. There is nothing missing right now. Nothing is wrong in this moment. Even your uncertainty is part of the unfolding. When you stop labeling it as a problem, it becomes a doorway. And beyond that doorway is a quieter, wiser way of living, one where guidance is not chased but received, where peace is not postponed but practiced, and where you remember again and again that you were never meant to do this alone. And now, as the words continue to move through you, let them settle not in the intellect but in the space beneath it, where knowing does not need explanation. There is a quiet courage that arises when you stop insisting on certainty. It is the courage to remain open, to remain present, to remain receptive, even when the mind would prefer closure. This courage is not loud or dramatic. It feels like steadiness. It feels like standing firmly in the middle of life without needing to push it away or pull it closer. There is an unseen order to things that reveals itself only when you stop interfering with it. Stress is interference. It is the attempt to force clarity before it is ripe. It is the refusal to let mystery do its work. But mystery is not your enemy. Mystery is the womb of creation. Every insight, every revelation, every transformation begins in not knowing. When you allow yourself to rest there without panic, you discover that uncertainty is not emptiness, it is possibility. Notice how often you confuse urgency with importance. The loudest demands are rarely the truest ones. What is truly meant for you does not require strain. It does not arrive with threat or pressure. It aligns. It resonates. It feels quietly inevitable. Stress pulls you away from that resonance. It convinces you that you must rush toward what is already moving toward you in perfect timing. Timing is a sacred intelligence. It cannot be bullied. It cannot be negotiated with fear. It unfolds when conditions are aligned, when you are ready to receive without distortion. When you stress, you distort perception. You see obstacles where there are invitations. You see delays where there is preparation. You see endings where there are thresholds. Peace restores accurate vision. It allows you to see life as it is, not as fear predicts it will be. There is a deep humility in allowing guidance instead of demanding control. It is the humility of recognizing that the same intelligence that formed galaxies also moves through your smallest decisions. You do not need to manage that intelligence. You need to cooperate with it. Cooperation begins with listening. Listening begins with stillness. And stillness begins the moment you stop arguing with the present. You may notice that when you relax your grip, emotions rise that you have been holding at bay. This is not regression. It is release. Stress often acts as a lid, keeping grief, fatigue, and longing suppressed. When the lid lifts, feelings surface, asking to be acknowledged, not fixed. Allow them. Emotions are energy-seeking movement. When you stop resisting them, they move through you and leave clarity in their wake. There is a tenderness required here, a willingness to be with yourself without judgment. You are not meant to be perpetually strong, perpetually composed, perpetually certain. You are meant to be authentic. Authenticity creates alignment. Alignment invites guidance. Guidance restores peace. This is the cycle you return to when you stop stressing and start trusting. Pay attention to how guidance feels in the body. It is not frantic. It does not tighten your chest or shorten your breath. It often feels expansive, even when it challenges you. It carries a sense of rightness that does not need defense. When you feel compelled to justify a decision through fear, pause. Guidance does not need justification. It needs permission. You are learning to live from a deeper center now, one that is not governed by external approval or internal pressure. From this center, action arises naturally. You do what needs to be done, not because you are afraid of consequences, but because it aligns with truth. This kind of action is efficient without being exhausting. It is purposeful without being forced. It leaves you feeling more yourself, not less. The world may continue to move quickly around you. Noise may persist. Demands may still appear. But something within you has shifted. You no longer take every signal as a summons. You no longer interpret every challenge as a threat. You discern. You choose. You respond from presence, and presence is the doorway through which divine guidance flows effortlessly. There is a quiet joy that emerges when you realize you do not have to outrun life. You do not have to anticipate every turn. You do not have to brace yourself for impact. Life is not chasing you. It is inviting you. And the invitation is always the same. Come back to now. Soften your thoughts. Trust the intelligence that breathes you. As you continue forward, remember this feeling not as a memory, but as a reference point. Whenever stress returns, let it be a signal, not a failure. A signal to pause. A signal to breathe. A signal to listen. Stress is not an enemy to defeat. It is a reminder to return home to yourself. And in that return, again and again, you will find what has always been waiting. A guidance that does not shout. A support that does not waver. And a peace that does not depend on circumstances, only on your willingness to be still enough to receive it. And now, let the words dissolve into something quieter than language. Something that does not need to be remembered because it is already part of you. Feel how the effort to hold everything together can finally soften. You do not need to brace yourself anymore. You are allowed to rest inside the truth that life is not an enemy to conquer, but a partner inviting you into trust. There is a deeper intelligence carrying you forward, even when your mind cannot see the road. It has always been there, guiding your breath, healing your wounds, arranging meetings, endings, beginnings, and pauses with a precision that fear could never design. When you stop stressing, you stop interrupting that intelligence. You step aside just enough for grace to move freely. Notice how peace does not require anything from you. It does not ask you to improve, to hurry, or to become someone else. It simply asks you to arrive, to be here, to feel your own presence without judgment. In that arrival, something sacred happens. You remember that you are not late, not behind, not failing. You are unfolding. The urge to worry may still visit from time to time, let it come without resistance. Let it pass without obedience. You no longer need to fight it or analyze it. Simply notice it and return to the quiet place beneath it. Every return strengthens your trust. Every moment of softness rewires your relationship with life. There is a freedom in realizing that you do not have to push the river. You do not have to demand signs or force clarity. What is meant to reach you will do so with ease. What is meant to leave will do so with purpose. And what remains will shape you gently, not through strain, but through understanding. You are learning to live from the inside out now, from presence instead of pressure, from faith instead of fear, from listening instead of forcing. This way of living does not make life smaller, it makes it truer. You begin to notice beauty where you once saw threat. You begin to feel supported where you once felt alone. And in this quieter way of being, guidance becomes ordinary. It shows up in a feeling, a pause, a sense of calm, certainty. It guides you not away from life, but deeper into it, step by step, breath by breath, moment by moment. So let go now, not dramatically, not all at once, but gently. Release the need to have everything resolved. Release the belief that stress is necessary. Release the habit of carrying tomorrow's weight today. You were never meant to live like that. Be still enough to hear what has always been speaking to you in peace. Trust enough to follow what feels true rather than what feels urgent. And remember, whenever the world feels loud or uncertain, that you can return here to this quiet center where guidance waits patiently and where you are always unmistakably held.
Right now, in this very moment, you are exactly where you need to be. I know that might sound strange, especially if you're going through difficult times, especially if you feel lost or confused or wondering how you ended up here. But I want you to understand something fundamental about life, about your life specifically. There are no accidents. There are no mistakes in the universe. Everything that has brought you to this point has been necessary for your growth, for your evolution, for your awakening. You see, most of us spend our entire lives fighting against what is. We resist our current circumstances. We tell ourselves stories about how things should be different, how we should be further along, how we should have made better choices. And all of that resistance, all of that struggle against what is, creates suffering. It creates anxiety. It creates this sense that we're not good enough, that we're behind somehow, that we've failed. But what if I told you that where you are right now is perfect? What if I told you that every single experience you've had, every heartbreak, every failure, every moment of doubt has been preparing you for something magnificent? What if this very moment right now is the doorway to a completely new way of living? You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know the next 10 steps. You don't need to see the whole staircase. All you need to do is take one step, and that step begins with acceptance. Not resignation, mind you, but acceptance. There's a huge difference. Resignation says, I give up. This is all there is. Acceptance says, this is where I am, and from here I can begin again. Think about a seed buried in the ground. That seed doesn't resist the darkness. It doesn't complain about being underground, about not being able to see the sun. The seed uses that darkness, that pressure, that difficult environment to transform itself. And one day, at exactly the right moment, it breaks through the soil and begins to grow toward the light. You are that seed. Your difficult times, your struggles, your moments of darkness, they're not punishments. They're the very conditions necessary for your transformation. Now, I want to talk to you about something that most people misunderstand completely. They think that change happens when you force it, when you push and struggle and fight your way through. But real change, lasting change, happens when you relax into it, when you stop resisting what is and start working with it instead. You've been trying so hard, haven't you? Trying to be someone different, trying to fix yourself, trying to become worthy of love or success or happiness. But here's the truth that will set you free. You already are worthy. You don't need to earn your worth. You were born worthy. You came into this world as a perfect expression of life itself, and nothing you've done or failed to do has changed that fundamental truth. The problem is that somewhere along the way you started believing the stories that other people told you about who you should be. Your parents had ideas. Your teachers had expectations. Society created rules about what success looks like, what happiness should feel like, how you should live your life, and slowly, gradually, you began to abandon yourself. You began to live according to someone else's blueprint instead of your own. But your spirit, your true self, has been calling to you all along. Every moment of dissatisfaction you've felt, every time you've thought, there must be more than this, that was your authentic self trying to get your attention. And maybe that's why you're here right now in this moment feeling whatever you're feeling. Maybe you've reached a point where you simply can't continue living the old way anymore. And you know what? That's beautiful. That's not a crisis. That's an awakening. When the old ways stop working, when the masks we've been wearing start to feel suffocating, when we can't pretend anymore, that's when real transformation becomes possible. That's when we're finally ready for a new beginning. So let me ask you something. What would happen if you just stopped struggling for a moment? What would happen if you took a deep breath and said, okay, this is where I am. I don't have to like it, but I can stop fighting it. What would happen if you gave yourself permission to be exactly where you are without judgment, without criticism, without shame? I'll tell you what would happen. You'd create space for something new to come in, space for clarity, space for inspiration, space for the universe to work on your behalf. Because here's something most people don't understand. When you're constantly struggling and straining and trying to force things to happen, you're actually blocking the flow of good into your life. You're like someone standing in a river, pushing against the current, exhausting yourself, when all you need to do is turn around and let the river carry you. This doesn't mean you become passive. This doesn't mean you stop taking action. It means you align yourself with the natural flow of life instead of fighting against it. It means you learn to move with grace instead of force. It means you trust the process. And trust, that's a big word, isn't it? Trust is hard, especially if you've been hurt, especially if things haven't worked out the way you planned. But trust isn't about knowing everything will be okay. Trust is about knowing that whatever happens, you have the strength within you to handle it. Trust is about remembering that you've survived every difficult moment in your life so far. You've had your heart broken, and you survived. You've faced disappointments, and you survived. You've been through dark nights of the soul, and yet here you are, still breathing, still capable of growth, still capable of love. That's not weakness. That's incredible strength. And that strength is still within you right now. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's just been covered up by fear and doubt and all those voices telling you that you're not enough. But you are enough. Right now, exactly as you are enough. You don't need to wait until you lose weight or make more money or find the perfect relationship or achieve some goal. Your worthiness is inherent. It's not dependent on external circumstances. It's not something you earn. It's something you are. And when you really understand this, when you really feel this truth in your bones, everything changes. Because you stop seeking validation from outside yourself. You stop giving your power away to other people's opinions. You stop living your life according to someone else's standards. And you start living from the inside out instead of the outside in. This is what I mean by a new beginning. A new beginning isn't about changing your circumstances, although your circumstances might change as a result. A new beginning is about changing your relationship with yourself and with life itself. It's about coming home to who you really are underneath all the conditioning and programming and fear. And who are you really? You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your past mistakes or your future worries. You are not the roles you play or the labels other people have given you. You are pure awareness. You are consciousness itself, temporarily wearing a human costume, having a human experience. When you identify with your true nature, when you recognize yourself as this vast, eternal awareness, all your problems become smaller. They don't disappear necessarily, but they lose their power over you. Because you realize that you're not the character in the story, struggling with all these difficulties. You're the one watching the story unfold. You're the space in which the story happens. This isn't just philosophy. This has practical implications for your daily life. When you're identified with your thoughts and emotions, when you think you are your story, then everything feels personal. Every criticism wounds you. Every setback devastates you. Every fear consumes you. But when you recognize that you're the awareness witnessing all of this, you gain distance. You gain perspective. You can watch your thoughts without being controlled by them. You can feel your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. And from that place of awareness, from that place of inner stillness, you can make much better choices. You can respond to life instead of reacting to it. You can act from wisdom instead of fear. You can create your life intentionally instead of just letting it happen to you. So how do you get to that place? How do you access that awareness? You do it by becoming present. Right now, as you're reading these words, bring your attention to your breathing. Feel the breath moving in and out of your body. Notice the sensation of air moving through your nostrils. Feel your chest rising and falling. That's it. That's all you need to do. When you bring your attention to your breath, you automatically become present. You step out of the endless stream of thoughts about the past and the future, and you land in the only moment that actually exists, this one. And in this moment, right now, are you okay? I'm not asking if your life is perfect. I'm not asking if all your problems are solved. I'm asking right now, in this actual moment, are you fundamentally okay? You're breathing. You're aware. You're alive. And in this moment, that's enough. The suffering we experience doesn't usually come from what's happening in the present moment. It comes from our thoughts about what happened in the past or what might happen in the future. It comes from comparing our current reality to some idealized version of how things should be. It comes from resisting what is and wishing things were different. But what if you could just be with what is? What if you could meet this moment exactly as it presents itself without trying to change it or fix it or escape from it? What if you could bring a gentle curiosity to your experience instead of harsh judgment? When you do this, something miraculous happens. The struggle eases. The tension releases. And in that relaxation, in that softening, you create the conditions for change to occur naturally. Because change doesn't come from force, change comes from love. It comes from acceptance. It comes from being present with what is so fully and completely that transformation happens on its own. Think about it. Have you ever tried to force yourself to change something about yourself through self-criticism and judgment? How did that work out? Did beating yourself up make you more motivated or less? Did hating your body make you healthier? Did judging your past mistakes make you wiser? Probably not, because change that comes from a place of self-rejection isn't sustainable. It creates more of the same negative energy that caused the problem in the first place. But when you approach yourself with compassion, with understanding, with genuine care for your own well-being, everything shifts. You start making choices that honor yourself instead of harm yourself. You start treating yourself the way you would treat someone you truly loved. And from that place of self-love, real change becomes not only possible, but inevitable. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but I've made such terrible mistakes. I've hurt people. I've wasted so much time. How can I just accept that and move on? And I hear you. I understand that guilt and regret. But staying stuck in guilt doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the people you hurt. It doesn't help you. And it certainly doesn't make the world a better place. What helps is learning from your mistakes and choosing differently going forward. What helps is making amends where possible and forgiving yourself where it's not. What helps is understanding that you did the best you could with the level of awareness you had at the time. And now you have more awareness. Now you can choose differently. Now you can be the person you wish you had been then. Every moment is a new beginning. Every breath is a chance to start fresh. You don't have to wait for New Year's Day or Monday morning or some perfect moment in the future. You can begin again right now, right here, exactly where you are. And beginning again doesn't mean denying your past or pretending it didn't happen. It means integrating your past, learning from it, and using it as fuel for your growth. Every difficult experience you've had has given you wisdom. Every failure has taught you something valuable. Every heartbreak has deepened your capacity for compassion. Nothing has been wasted. It's all been part of your education in being human. So what does your new beginning look like? Only you can answer that. But I can tell you this, it starts with a decision. A decision to stop waiting for perfect conditions. A decision to stop making excuses. A decision to take responsibility for your life, not in a way that blames you for everything that's happened, but in a way that empowers you to create what happens next. Because you are not a victim of your circumstances. You are a creator. You might not be able to control everything that happens to you, but you can absolutely control how you respond to it. You can control the meaning you give to events. You can control the thoughts you choose to believe. You can control the actions you take. And that's where your power lies. Not in trying to control external events, but in taking full responsibility for your internal state. When you realize that no person, no circumstance, no past event has the power to determine your worth or your happiness, you become free, truly free. This freedom comes from understanding a simple but profound truth. You are not your circumstances. You are the one experiencing your circumstances. And you have the power to change your relationship with whatever you're experiencing. You have the power to find peace in the midst of chaos. You have the power to find joy even when things aren't perfect. You have the power to love yourself even when you feel unlovable. How do you develop this power? Through practice, through showing up for yourself day after day, through choosing presence over distraction, through choosing love over fear, through choosing faith over doubt. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. And let me be clear, this isn't about positive thinking or pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is about being honest with yourself about where you are while simultaneously holding a vision for where you want to go. It's about acknowledging your current reality without getting lost in it. It's about feeling your feelings fully while remembering that you are not your feelings. You are the space in which feelings arise and pass away. Everything passes. This is one of the most important things you can understand. Whatever you're going through right now, it will change. It might not change as quickly as you'd like. It might not change in the way you expect, but it will change, because change is the only constant in life. Everything is in motion. Everything is evolving. Everything is becoming. And you are becoming too. Every experience is shaping you. Every challenge is strengthening you. Every moment of darkness is preparing you to appreciate the light. You are not the same person you were a year ago or even yesterday. You are constantly evolving, constantly growing, constantly becoming more of who you really are. So, relax. Take a breath. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You just have to be willing to show up for your own life, to be present, to be honest, to be kind to yourself. Because here's what I've learned after all these years of studying human behavior, of working with thousands of people, of observing my own journey. The people who are truly happy, the people who are truly at peace, are not the ones who have perfect lives. They're the ones who have learned to work with whatever life brings them. They're the ones who have developed a strong relationship with themselves. They're the ones who know that their worth is not dependent on external validation. These people understand that happiness is not a destination to arrive at. It's not something you achieve once you get the right job or the right partner or the right amount of money. Happiness is a way of traveling. It's a choice you make in each moment. It's a practice, not a prize. And peace, real peace, doesn't come from having everything under control. It comes from accepting that you're not in control and learning to trust the process anyway. It comes from surrendering your need to know how everything will work out and being willing to take one step at a time into the unknown. The unknown is scary, I get it. We've been taught to fear uncertainty, to always have a plan, to know what's coming next. But the unknown is also where all possibilities live. It's where miracles happen. It's where transformation occurs. When you can learn to be comfortable with not knowing, when you can learn to stay present in the uncertainty, you open yourself up to opportunities that you couldn't have planned for or predicted. Life has a way of working out. Not always in the way you expect, but often in ways that are better than you could have imagined. But you have to be willing to let go of your rigid expectations about how things should unfold. You have to be willing to be surprised. You have to be willing to trust that there's an intelligence at work in the universe that's far greater than your limited human perspective. Some people call this intelligence God. Some call it the universe or source or higher power. The name doesn't matter. What matters is recognizing that you're not alone in this. You're not separate from life. You're an integral part of it. And just as your body knows how to heal a cut without your conscious intervention, just as nature knows how to grow a tree from a seed, there's a knowing within you, a wisdom that can guide you if you learn to listen to it. That inner wisdom speaks to you through your intuition, through your gut feelings, through those quiet nudges that tell you when something is right or wrong for you. But most of us have learned to ignore that voice. We've learned to trust external authorities more than our own inner knowing. We've learned to doubt ourselves, to second-guess our instincts, to look outside ourselves for answers that can only be found within. Your new beginning involves learning to trust yourself again. It involves quieting the noise of external opinions and expectations so you can hear your own truth. It involves asking yourself, what do I really want? What really matters to me? What kind of life do I want to create? And then having the courage to honor those answers, even if they don't match what other people think you should do. This takes courage, real courage. Because it's much easier to follow the well-worn path that others have traveled. It's much safer to do what's expected, to fit in, to not rock the boat. But safe isn't always healthy, and fitting in often means abandoning yourself, and the boat sometimes needs to be rocked. You were not born to live a small life. You were not born to play small, to hide your light, to settle for less than what your soul is calling you toward. You were born to express your unique gifts in the world. You were born to love and be loved. You were born to grow and evolve and become more conscious. You were born to make a difference in some way, large or small, and the world needs you to step into that. The world needs your unique perspective, your creativity, your compassion, your courage. There are people whose lives will be touched by you in ways you can't even foresee right now. There are contributions you're meant to make that only you can make. But none of that can happen if you're stuck in the past, paralyzed by fear, or waiting for perfect conditions that will never come. So what are you waiting for? What's holding you back? Is it fear of failure, fear of success, fear of judgment, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough? Whatever it is, I want you to understand something. That fear is not your enemy. That fear is just a part of you that's trying to keep you safe. It's the part of you that remembers getting hurt in the past and doesn't want to experience that pain again. But you can acknowledge that fear without letting it run your life. You can say to that fearful part of yourself, "Thank you for trying to protect me. I see you. I hear you. But I'm not in danger right now, and I'm choosing to move forward anyway." You can feel the fear and do it anyway. You can be scared and brave at the same time. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear and taking action despite it. Courage is knowing you might fail and trying anyway. Courage is risking rejection in order to live authentically. Courage is choosing to be vulnerable even though you might get hurt. And yes, you might fail. You might make mistakes. You might fall flat on your face. So what? You've failed before and you survived. You've made mistakes before and you learned from them. You've fallen down before and you got back up. Failure is not fatal. It's just feedback. It's just information about what doesn't work so you can try something different. The only real failure is not trying at all. The only real mistake is letting fear keep you from living the life you're meant to live. The only real tragedy is getting to the end of your life and realizing you never really lived, you only existed. And I don't want that for you. I want you to really live. I want you to feel deeply, to love fully, to take risks, to make mistakes, to learn, to grow, to express yourself, to follow your curiosity, to honor your passions, to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to be real, because that's what life is about. It's not about being perfect. It's not about having all the answers. It's not about avoiding pain or difficulty. It's about showing up fully for the whole human experience, the joy and the sorrow, the triumphs and the defeats, the connection and the loneliness, all of it. And when you show up fully, when you stop holding back, when you stop playing it safe, something magical happens. Life meets you there, opportunities appear, synchronicities occur. The right people show up at the right time. Resources become available. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. But none of that can happen when you're playing small, when you're hiding, when you're waiting for permission or for perfect conditions. It only happens when you take that first step, even though you're scared, even though you don't know exactly where it will lead, even though you can't see the whole path. You only need to see the next step. That's all, just one step at a time. And each step you take gives you a clearer view of the next step. You don't need the whole map. You just need to start moving. And as you start moving, as you start taking action aligned with your true self, you'll notice something interesting. You'll start to feel more alive, more energized, more present, more connected to yourself and to life itself. Because you'll be living in alignment with your soul's purpose instead of fighting against it. Your soul knows why you're here. Your soul knows what you came here to learn, to experience, to contribute. And when you align with that, when you stop trying to force your life into some predetermined mold and instead allow it to unfold naturally, everything becomes easier. Not necessarily easy, but easier. More flowing, more graceful. You start to trust the process. You start to see that even the difficult times have purpose. You start to recognize that everything is working together for your highest good, even when you can't see how. You start to relax into life instead of constantly fighting against it. And that relaxation, that surrender, that's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's maturity. That's the hallmark of someone who's learned that control is an illusion and that true power comes from working with life instead of against it. So right now, in this moment, I invite you to take a breath and just relax. Relax your shoulders, relax your jaw, relax your mind. You don't have to figure everything out right now. You don't have to solve all your problems today. You just have to be here, now, present, and available to this moment. And from this place of relaxed presence, ask yourself, what is one small thing I could do today that would honor myself? What is one small choice I could make that would be aligned with who I want to become? What is one small step I could take toward the life I want to create? It doesn't have to be a big thing. In fact, it's better if it's small, because small, consistent actions create lasting change. Small steps taken every day will carry you further than big leaps taken once in a while. The key is consistency. The key is showing up for yourself day after day, moment after moment, choice after choice. And some days will be easier than others. Some days you'll feel motivated and inspired and ready to take on the world. Other days you'll feel tired and discouraged and tempted to give up. That's okay. That's normal. That's part of being human. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep going. On the hard days, be especially gentle with yourself. On the days when you feel like you're not making progress, remember how far you've come. On the days when you want to give up, remember why you started. On the days when you feel alone, remember that you're part of something much bigger than yourself. You are connected to all of life. You are supported by forces you can't see. You are loved by a universe that brought you into existence for a reason. You matter. Your life matters. Your choices matter. What you do with this one precious life of yours matters. And it's never too late to begin again. It doesn't matter how old you are, how many mistakes you've made, how much time you think you've wasted. Right now is a new beginning. Right now is when your life can change. Right now is when you can choose differently. So choose love over fear. Choose presence over distraction. Choose action over procrastination. Choose authenticity over pretense. Choose growth over comfort. Choose faith over doubt. Choose yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a way that honors the truth of who you are and why you're here. Because when you honor yourself, when you live from your truth, when you align with your purpose, you give others permission to do the same. Your courage inspires courage in others. Your authenticity gives others permission to be authentic. Your willingness to be vulnerable makes it safer for others to be vulnerable. You change the world by changing yourself. And that's what this moment is offering you. A chance to change, a chance to begin again, a chance to step into a new way of being, not someday in the future when conditions are perfect, but right now, exactly as you are, exactly where you are. You are exactly where you need to be for a new beginning. All the experiences that brought you here have prepared you for this moment. All the lessons you've learned have given you the wisdom you need. All the challenges you've faced have given you the strength you need. You have everything you need right now to take the next step. So relax, breathe, trust. You've got this. Not because you're perfect or because you have it all figured out, but because you're willing to show up. You're willing to try. You're willing to grow. You're willing to begin again. And that willingness, that openness, that's all you need. The rest will unfold in its own time, in its own way. Your job is not to control the outcome. Your job is to show up fully for the process, to be present, to be authentic, to be kind to yourself and others, to do your best and trust that your best is enough. Because it is enough. You are enough. Right now, exactly as you are enough. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Not because you have all the answers, but because you're willing to ask the questions. Not because you've arrived, but because you're willing to take the journey. And what a journey it is. What an adventure. What a gift to be alive, to be conscious, to be here now in this moment with infinite possibilities stretching out before you. Yes, there will be challenges. Yes, there will be difficulties. But there will also be joy and love and beauty and connection and growth and moments of pure magic that take your breath away. So relax into it. Trust it. Allow it. You are exactly where you need to be. Everything is unfolding perfectly. Your new beginning is here, right now, in this very moment. All you have to do is say yes. Yes to yourself. Yes to life. Yes to the adventure that's calling you forward. The time is now. The place is here. The person is you. This is your moment. This is your new beginning. Take it. Own it. Live it. and watch as your life transforms in ways you never thought possible. You've got this, you really do, and I believe in you, even if you don't quite believe in yourself yet. Trust that belief. Let it carry you forward until you can feel it for yourself, and know that you're not alone. You never have been, you never will be. You are supported, you are guided, you are loved, always. So take that breath, take that step, begin again, right here, right now, exactly where you are. This is it. This is your time. Make it count. You know, there comes a moment in your life when you begin to realize that walking alone isn't a punishment. It's not something that happened to you because you're difficult or because you're too much or because there's something wrong with you. Walking alone is actually a sign that you've awakened to something most people spend their entire lives running from. You've awakened to your true self, and that changes everything. Most people live their entire lives trying to fit in. They spend decades molding themselves, shaping themselves, cutting off parts of who they are just to belong. They silence their inner voice because it doesn't match what everyone else is saying. They dim their light because it makes others uncomfortable. They follow the crowd even when the crowd is heading straight off a cliff. And they do all of this because they're terrified of being alone. But you're different. Something inside you refused to play that game anymore. Maybe it happened gradually, or maybe it happened all at once, but at some point you looked around and realized that fitting in was costing you everything. It was costing you your peace. It was costing you your authenticity. It was costing you your very soul. And you made a choice. You chose yourself. You chose truth. You chose to walk alone rather than walk in the wrong direction with everyone else. Now, let me tell you something important. When you make this choice, when you decide to honor your authentic self, people are going to react. Some will be confused, some will be angry, some will call you selfish, some will say you've changed, and they'll say it like it's a bad thing. They'll try to pull you back into the old patterns, the old ways of being, because your growth threatens their comfort. Your evolution challenges their stagnation. Your light reminds them of the darkness they've chosen to accept. This is why the chosen ones walk alone. Not because they want to be alone, but because they're no longer willing to betray themselves for companionship. They've learned that being alone is not the same as being lonely. They've learned that you can be surrounded by people and feel completely isolated, and you can be completely alone and feel totally connected to the universe. You see, when you're living authentically, when you're aligned with your highest self, you operate on a different frequency. Most people are living in fear. They're operating from a place of lack, of scarcity, of limitation. They're worried about what others think. They're concerned with status and image and keeping up appearances. They're running on old programming, old beliefs that were handed down to them by people who are also living in fear. But you've broken free from that. You've recognized that there's another way to live. You've seen that life can be lived from a place of love rather than fear, from abundance rather than scarcity, from possibility rather than limitation. And once you see this, once you truly understand it, you can't go back. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unknow what you know. This creates a natural separation. It has to, because you're no longer resonating with the same things. The conversations that used to interest you now feel empty. The activities that used to excite you now feel meaningless. The relationships that used to fulfill you now feel draining. And this isn't because you're being judgmental or because you think you're better than anyone else. It's simply because you've outgrown those things. You've evolved past them, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually beautiful. Think about a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. The butterfly doesn't judge the caterpillars. It doesn't think it's better than them. But it also doesn't try to crawl on the ground anymore, pretending it doesn't have wings. It flies. It has to fly. That's its nature now. And you, my friend, you have wings. You've transformed. And now you must fly, even if it means flying alone for a while. The truth is that walking alone is often a necessary part of your spiritual evolution. It's in the solitude that you truly get to know yourself. It's in the quiet that you hear the voice of your higher self. It's in the stillness that you connect with the infinite intelligence that flows through all things. When you're constantly surrounded by noise, by other people's opinions, by society's expectations, it's nearly impossible to hear your own inner guidance. But when you're alone, when you've created that space, that's when the real magic happens. This is when you start to understand that you're not really alone at all. You're connected to something much greater than yourself. You're part of the universal consciousness. You're an individualized expression of the divine. And when you tap into that connection, when you really feel it, you realize that you have access to infinite wisdom, infinite love, infinite power. You don't need other people to validate you because you're validated by the universe itself. You don't need other people to complete you because you're already whole. Now, I'm not saying that relationships aren't important. I'm not suggesting that you should become a hermit and never interact with anyone again. What I'm saying is that the quality of your relationships changes dramatically when you're not coming from a place of need. When you're not looking for someone to fix you or save you or make you feel worthy, you're free to have authentic connections. You're free to love people for who they are, not for what they can do for you. You're free to show up as your true self, not as the person you think others want you to be. But here's the thing. Not everyone can handle that level of authenticity. Not everyone is ready for that kind of real relationship. Most people are still wearing masks, still playing roles, still protecting themselves behind walls of pretense. And when you show up without a mask, when you're genuinely yourself, it makes them uncomfortable. It challenges them. It forces them to look at their own inauthenticity. And rather than do that inner work, rather than face their own shadows, they'll often reject you. They'll push you away. They'll tell you you're too intense, too serious, too much. And this hurts. Let's be honest about that. It hurts to be rejected. It hurts to be misunderstood. It hurts to watch people you care about walk away from you. But here's what you need to understand. Their rejection is not about you. It's about them. It's about their own fears, their own limitations, their own inability to meet you where you are. And you absolutely cannot make yourself smaller to make others feel bigger. You cannot dim your light to make others feel comfortable in their darkness. You cannot go backwards in your growth just to maintain relationships that no longer serve your highest good. This is one of the hardest lessons to learn, but it's absolutely essential. You have to be willing to let people go. You have to be willing to walk away from relationships that are holding you back. You have to be willing to stand alone in your truth, even when everyone else is telling you you're wrong. Because here's what happens when you do that. Here's what happens when you honor yourself, even when it's difficult, even when it's scary, even when you feel completely alone. You create space. You create space in your life for something better. You create space for people who can match your energy, who can meet you at your level, who can appreciate you for who you truly are. You create space for opportunities that align with your authentic self. You create space for miracles to occur. But as long as you're holding on to things that no longer serve you, as long as you're trying to maintain relationships that require you to be someone you're not, there's no room for anything new. There's no room for growth. There's no room for the life you're meant to live. So you walk alone for a while. You walk through the wilderness. You walk through the uncertainty. You walk through the fear and the doubt and the loneliness. And it's hard. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. But you keep walking. You keep putting one foot in front of the other. You keep moving forward even when you can't see where you're going. You keep trusting even when you have no evidence that things will work out. And then something shifts. Slowly, gradually, you start to realize that you're okay. You're more than okay. You're actually thriving. You're discovering parts of yourself you never knew existed. You're developing strengths you never knew you had. You're accessing wisdom you never knew was available. You're connecting with a power that's been inside you all along. You start to see that this time alone wasn't a curse. It was a gift. It was exactly what you needed. It was the universe giving you the space to grow, to heal, to transform. It was stripping away everything that wasn't truly you so that you could finally become who you were always meant to be. And here's the beautiful part. As you become more and more yourself, as you align more and more with your authentic nature, you start to attract people who resonate with that frequency. Not people who want to use you or control you or change you, but people who genuinely appreciate you. People who celebrate your growth. People who support your evolution. People who love you not despite who you are, but because of who you are. These are your true tribe. These are your soul family. And you could never have found them if you hadn't been willing to walk alone first. You could never have recognized them if you hadn't done the inner work. You could never have attracted them if you hadn't raised your own vibration. So you see, walking alone isn't the end of the story, it's just a chapter. It's an important chapter, a necessary chapter, but it's not where you stay forever. You walk alone so that you can learn to stand in your own power. You walk alone so that you can develop your own inner strength. You walk alone so that you can connect with your own divinity. And then, from that place of wholeness, from that place of completeness, you're able to come together with others in a way that's healthy, in a way that's balanced, in a way that's truly fulfilling. But let me tell you something else. Even when you find your tribe, even when you connect with your soul family, there will still be times when you need to walk alone. There will still be times when you need to go inward, when you need to reconnect with yourself, when you need to listen to that inner voice, because the path of growth never ends. The path of evolution is ongoing. And each new level of consciousness requires you to shed another layer, to release another attachment, to let go of another limiting belief. This is why the chosen ones are always walking a path that others don't understand. They're not content with where they are. They're always growing, always evolving, always reaching for something higher. They're not satisfied with surface-level living. They want depth. They want meaning. They want truth. And that requires them to constantly move beyond their comfort zone, to constantly challenge themselves, to constantly push the boundaries of what they thought was possible. Most people settle. They find a comfortable place and they stop. They get to a certain point in their life and they decide that's good enough. They stop asking questions, they stop seeking answers, they stop growing. And there's no judgment in that. Everyone has the right to choose their own path. But if you're someone who can't stop growing, if you're someone who can't stop seeking, if you're someone who can't stop evolving, then you're going to naturally separate yourself from those who have chosen to settle. And that's okay. It has to be okay. Because you didn't come here to live someone else's life. You didn't come here to follow someone else's path. You came here to live your life, to walk your path, to fulfill your purpose. And your purpose might look very different from what others expect. Your purpose might require you to take risks that others aren't willing to take. Your purpose might demand sacrifices that others aren't willing to make. Your purpose might lead you down roads that others are too afraid to travel, but you have to follow it anyway. You have to honor it. You have to trust it, because that's why you're here. That's what you signed up for. Before you came into this physical body, before you took your first breath in this lifetime, you made an agreement. You agreed to be a light bearer. You agreed to be a way shower. You agreed to be someone who would wake up and help others wake up. Now, being chosen doesn't mean you're better than anyone else. It doesn't mean you're special in the way the ego wants to be special. It means you have a responsibility. It means you have a calling. It means you have a mission. And that mission is to live as an example of what's possible, to show others that there's another way to live, to demonstrate that you can break free from conditioning and programming and limitation, to prove that you can create a life of joy and peace and fulfillment regardless of external circumstances. But you can't do that if you're still trying to please everyone. You can't do that if you're still seeking approval from others. You can't do that if you're still living according to other people's rules and expectations. You have to be willing to stand alone in your truth. You have to be willing to be misunderstood. You have to be willing to be criticized and judged and rejected, because that comes with the territory. That comes with choosing to live authentically in a world that rewards conformity. And the irony is that the very people who judge you, the very people who criticize you, the very people who reject you, they're often the ones who secretly admire what you're doing. They're often the ones who wish they had the courage to do the same thing. But they're too afraid. They're too attached to what others think. They're too invested in maintaining their image. So instead of following their own truth, they try to tear down yours. They try to make you doubt yourself. They try to make you question your path. Don't let them. Don't give your power away to people who are living in fear. Don't let other people's limitations become your limitations. Don't let other people's fears become your fears. You know what's true for you. You know what feels right in your heart. You know what your soul is calling you to do. Trust that. Honor that. Follow that no matter what anyone else says. Because here's the truth that most people don't understand. When you're aligned with your authentic self, when you're living in integrity with your highest values, when you're following your inner guidance, you're being supported by the entire universe, you're being backed by a power that's greater than any obstacle you'll face, you're being guided by an intelligence that knows exactly where you need to go and what you need to do. But you have to trust it. You have to surrender to it. You have to let go of trying to control everything and allow yourself to be led. And that requires tremendous faith. That requires tremendous courage. That requires you to walk into the unknown without any guarantees, without any assurances, without any safety nets. This is what separates the chosen ones from everyone else. They're willing to take that leap. They're willing to trust that leap. They're willing to walk forward even when they can't see the ground beneath their feet. They know that when you're doing what you're meant to be doing, when you're living your purpose, the universe conspires to support you. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. Opportunities appear that you couldn't have planned for. People show up at exactly the right time with exactly what you need. But none of that can happen if you're still clinging to the old. None of that can happen if you're still trying to fit into a life that's too small for you. None of that can happen if you're still surrounding yourself with people who don't support your growth. You have to be willing to let it all go. You have to be willing to walk away from anything and anyone that's not aligned with your highest good. You have to be willing to stand alone if that's what it takes. And I know that sounds scary. I know it feels overwhelming. I know there are moments when you question whether you're doing the right thing. There are moments when you wonder if maybe everyone else is right and you're wrong. There are moments when the loneliness feels so intense that you consider going back, giving up, settling for less than what you know you deserve. But in those moments, in those difficult moments, you have to remember why you started this path in the first place. You have to remember what it felt like to be living inauthentically, to be pretending to be someone you're not, to be silencing your true voice. You have to remember the pain of betraying yourself, the emptiness of living a lie, the despair of knowing you're meant for something more, but being too afraid to reach for it. And then you have to remember what it feels like now, even with all the challenges, even with all the difficulties, even with all the loneliness. Because even in the hard times, there's a peace that comes from living authentically. There's a joy that comes from honoring your truth. There's a power that comes from standing in your integrity. And that's worth more than any approval you could get from others. That's worth more than any relationship that requires you to be less than you are. That's worth more than any comfort you could find by playing it safe. You are not meant to play it safe. You are not meant to live a small life. You are not meant to hide your light, or diminish your gifts, or shrink yourself to fit into boxes that were never designed for you. You are meant to expand. You are meant to grow. You are meant to become the fullest expression of who you truly are. And yes, that means walking alone sometimes. Yes, that means facing your fears. Yes, that means being uncomfortable and uncertain and vulnerable. But it also means waking up every day knowing that you're living with integrity. It means looking in the mirror and recognizing the person staring back at you. It means going to bed at night with peace in your heart because you know you honored yourself. It means experiencing a connection to something greater than yourself that fills you up from the inside out. It means accessing a joy that doesn't depend on external circumstances. It means finding a strength that can't be shaken by other people's opinions. This is what's available to you when you choose the path of authenticity. This is what's waiting for you on the other side of fear. This is what you gain when you're willing to walk alone. And it's not that you'll always be alone. That's not the point. The point is that you're complete within yourself. You're whole within yourself. You don't need anyone else to make you feel worthy or valuable or enough. You already are all of those things. And from that place of wholeness, from that place of completeness, you're able to show up in the world in a completely different way. You're able to give from a place of overflow rather than emptiness. You're able to love from a place of abundance rather than need. You're able to serve from a place of strength rather than depletion. You become a source of light for others, not because you're trying to be, but because that's simply what you are when you're aligned with your true nature. This is the gift that the chosen ones bring to the world, not by preaching or teaching or trying to convince anyone of anything, but simply by being themselves, simply by living as an example of what's possible. Simply by demonstrating that you can break free from the matrix of conditioning and limitation and create a life that's authentic and meaningful and fulfilling. And yes, you'll walk alone at times. Yes, you'll be misunderstood at times. Yes, you'll be rejected at times. But you'll also experience moments of pure magic. You'll also witness miracles unfolding in your life. You'll also connect with people and experiences and opportunities that take your breath away. You'll also feel a sense of purpose and meaning that makes every challenge worth it. Because when you're living your truth, when you're following your calling, when you're being who you were meant to be, life becomes an adventure. It becomes exciting. It becomes meaningful. Every day becomes an opportunity to grow, to learn, to expand. Every challenge becomes a chance to deepen your faith, to strengthen your courage, to prove to yourself just how powerful you really are. And the more you do this, the more you walk this path, the more you realize that you were never really alone. You were being guided all along. You were being supported all along. You were being loved all along. The universe has been conspiring in your favor from the very beginning. Every experience, every challenge, every person who came into your life and left your life, it was all preparing you for this moment. It was all teaching you what you needed to learn. It was all shaping you into the person you're becoming. So trust the path. Trust the process. Trust yourself. You wouldn't have been given this calling if you weren't capable of fulfilling it. You wouldn't have been awakened if you weren't ready to handle what comes with awakening. You wouldn't be reading these words right now if you weren't exactly where you need to be. The chosen ones walk alone not because they're cursed, but because they're blessed. They're blessed with the awareness that there's more to life than what most people settle for. They're blessed with the courage to pursue that awareness even when it's difficult. They're blessed with the strength to stand in their truth even when they're standing alone. And eventually, they realize they're not standing alone at all. They're standing with the universe. They're standing with their higher self. They're standing with every awakened soul who has ever walked this path before them. They're part of a lineage of light bearers, of truth seekers, of way showers who throughout history have been willing to walk alone, to be different, to challenge the status quo, to live according to a higher truth. You are one of them. You've always been one of them. And now it's time to fully step into that role. It's time to stop apologizing for who you are. It's time to stop hiding your light. It's time to stop shrinking yourself. It's time to stand tall in your truth and let the world see you for who you really are. And yes, some people will turn away. Yes, some people will judge you. Yes, some people will reject you. But the right people will find you. The right people will recognize you. The right people will celebrate you. And more importantly, you'll find yourself. You'll recognize yourself. You'll celebrate yourself. Because that's what this whole experience is really about. It's not about winning the approval of others. It's not about being liked or accepted or understood by everyone. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about remembering who you really are beneath all the conditioning and programming and false beliefs. It's about reconnecting with the divine essence that has always been within you. And when you do that, when you really do that, everything changes. Your whole life transforms. Not necessarily in the external ways you might expect, but in the internal ways that truly matter. You find peace, you find joy, you find love, you find meaning, you find purpose, and you realize that this is what you've been searching for all along, not out there in the world, but right here within yourself. So keep walking, keep trusting, keep growing, keep evolving, keep being true to yourself no matter what. Because the world needs you. The world needs your light. The world needs your authenticity. The world needs your courage. The world needs people who are willing to be themselves in a world that's constantly trying to turn them into something else. You are one of the chosen ones. And you're walking alone right now because that's exactly what you need to be doing. But you're not really alone. You're being held. You're being guided. You're being loved. And you're exactly where you need to be. Trust that. Believe that. Know that. And keep walking forward into the beautiful life that's waiting for you on the other side of fear.